Thank you, Mr. Biggs. And look, as we have trafficking victims testifying to us about really important issues, I think it's insulting to them to try and bring in politics right before I question them. Look, we'll see whatever is on the Epstein list if the full list is released, but I'm here to get serious things done, and so my line of questioning will not be absurd in the spirit of what was just said. And Ms. Lopez, thank you for sharing your story as well. I was a prosecutor. I've had child sex trafficking victims testify. It's one of the hardest things in the world to convince them to confront their attacker, their assailant, their trafficker in court, and more cases plead out because you want them to avoid doing that. And so these monsters typically don't get the full sentence they deserve because you're trying to protect the victim from having to go through cross-examination and seeing that individual in court. So thank you for sharing that. Ms. Bruggerman, could you share with us what would happen to organizations that help victims and provide support to victims and survivors of trafficking and exploitation if the temporary restraining order holding back this administration's order is lifted?
The order on the halting of funds?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, the service providers depend on a variety of different sources of funding, and I think the witnesses have talked about the different sources that they're familiar with. It is a web of protection that is woven with federal funds, private dollars, donations, earned income, that nonprofits around this country are working every day to ensure that they are able to provide consistent, reliable, dedicated services and support. When that is interrupted, even for a week, for a month, the message to survivors is, we cannot be relied upon. The day that you are able to find the time, the effort, the strength, the ability to escape your situation may be the day that our doors are closed. And once you do that, you may never be able to come out again. So if we allow our providers to close their doors, to go dark, we are inviting traffickers to walk in the door, to hold survivors captive, and we are telling survivors that we no longer care about your safety, we no longer care about your security, and we do not care whether or not you're able to ever escape your abuse and exploitation. We just can't let that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Bruggerman. And I imagine all of you know this, especially Ms. Lopez, but in my experience as a prosecutor, I was trained in law school and through the training that the district attorney's office provided to prove cases beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course, you want to have compassionate people, doing the job of criminal prosecution, but I could never have done my job unless I had outside organizations who were working with the victim in all of the life issues outside the legal issues that needed to be addressed. When they are pulled away from the trafficker and they need to reestablish their lives, get their confidence back, get their health back, receive the mental health services that they certainly need, to get a career if they have children. A prosecutor can't do that. And the only way to hold these monsters accountable who are trafficking them is for a prosecutor to have a victim who wants to be at least somewhat a part of the process. And so your organizations help us bring accountability. And accountability puts the worst people away and prevents the next victim from being trafficked, but it also is a deterrent to someone who will see that you will pay if you do this to a victim. So again, to each of you, thank you for what you do in this cause. Our victims are worthy of your support, and I hope that we can see any funding that's been pulled to be restored immediately. And I yield back.